Chosen one, listen carefully. This message did not come to entertain you, it came to awaken you. For a long time, we thought strength meant pushing harder, waiting longer, suffering silently, and calling it faith. We were wrong. God says the delay was not punishment, the silence was not rejection, and the struggle was not proof of failure. You were not overlooked. You were being repositioned. What you are hearing right now is confirmation that the old understanding no longer applies. This is a divine correction. The season you are entering requires new vision, new obedience, and a new kind of courage. Stay with this message, because what comes next changes everything. God says we were wrong about what preparation truly looks like, because we thought preparation meant certainty, confidence, and visible progress. We believed that if something was from God, it would arrive with clarity, peace, and a clear roadmap. But God says the kind of preparation required for your calling could never come through comfort. It had to come through stretching. That is why you were placed in seasons where answers were limited and direction felt blurred. Heaven was teaching you how to move without guarantees, how to listen more deeply, and how to trust even when emotions disagreed. You were learning discernment, not dependence on signs. You were learning obedience, not convenience. There were moments you questioned yourself because you didn't feel ready. God says that feeling was part of the training. If you had felt fully ready, you would have relied on your own strength. Instead, you learned to lean on grace. You learned how to stand when motivation was gone, and faith had to be a decision. Preparation was happening in silence, when no one applauded, when progress was invisible, and when quitting felt reasonable. Heaven was watching how you handled the unseen work. Because what is coming next requires discipline when no one is watching. God says we were wrong to think preparation would feel empowering. Often it felt humbling. You had to unlearn pride, release old expectations, and let go of how you thought life should look by now. Preparation stripped away the need to be understood. It taught you patience with people who doubted you and compassion for those who hurt you. You were learning restraint. You were learning how to stay quiet while God fought battles you could not win on your own. That restraint is power. That silence was wisdom being formed. You assumed preparation meant gathering resources, connections, and recognition. God says your preparation focused on character. You were being shaped to carry responsibility without being consumed by it. You were being taught how to remain grounded when elevated and how to stay humble when praised. The weight of what is coming would have crushed the version of you from before. That is why God slowed the process. He was protecting you from success arriving too early. There were days you felt overlooked and underestimated. God says that was intentional. If attention had come sooner, it would have distracted you. If approval had come earlier, it would have altered your motives. Heaven was preserving the purity of your purpose. You were learning to move without validation, to continue without reassurance, and to trust God's voice over public opinion. That is preparation the world cannot teach. You thought preparation would remove fear. God says it taught you how to move despite it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is obedience in the presence of fear. Every step you took while uncertain strengthened your spiritual muscle. Every time you kept going without clarity, you built endurance. That endurance will sustain you when pressure increases and responsibility multiplies. God says preparation also taught you boundaries. You learned who could walk with you and who could not. You learned the cost of overextending yourself and the danger of carrying what was never yours to carry. You learned to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation when God spoke. That discernment was earned through experience, not instruction. What you called confusion was training in discernment. What you called delay was timing being perfected. What you called isolation was focus being sharpened. God says nothing was wasted. Every uncomfortable lesson added strength you did not know you would need. Every season that felt empty was creating room for what is about to be poured in. Now God says you are prepared in ways you cannot yet measure. You are steadier. You are wiser. You are no longer easily shaken by opinions or circumstances. You can stand in pressure without losing peace. That is preparation fulfilled. What comes next will make sense of what came before. God says we were wrong about the pain because we treated it like evidence of failure instead of proof of transformation. You assumed that if you were walking the right path, it would not hurt this deeply. But God says the depth of the pain matched the depth of the change taking place within you. What hurt you was not sent to destroy you. It was allowed to expose what could no longer stay. Pain became the language that revealed where healing was necessary. It showed you what you had been carrying that was never meant to define you. There were wounds you tried to ignore because acknowledging them felt like weakness. God says facing them was strength. Every moment you sat with your pain instead of running from it, you gained clarity. You learned the difference between endurance and self-betrayal. You learned that staying silent to keep peace was slowly breaking your spirit. The pain taught you honesty. It forced you to confront truths you had postponed and feelings you had buried. That confrontation was not punishment. It was freedom beginning to form. God says we were wrong to think pain meant something was broken in you. In reality, pain revealed where growth was happening. When a bone heals, it aches. When muscles strengthen, they burn. In the same way, your spirit was rebuilding itself after seasons of strain. The tears, the exhaustion, and the moments of doubt were signs of release. What you felt was the weight of old versions falling away. The pain marked separation from what you were never meant to remain attached to. You questioned why certain people had to leave your life so painfully. God says the pain of separation was necessary because those connections were tied to old patterns. If they had stayed, you would have stayed smaller. The pain forced distance, and the distance created space for growth. It taught you that love without alignment will drain you. It taught you that loyalty without peace is not devotion. It is bondage. The pain gave you permission to choose yourself without guilt. God says the pain also revealed your resilience. There were moments you thought you would not survive emotionally, yet you are still standing. Grace carried you through nights where answers did not come and mornings where strength felt absent. You learned how to function while healing, how to keep moving while hurting, and how to hope without evidence. That resilience was built in the fire of discomfort. It cannot be taught, it must be lived. We were wrong to think pain disqualified you. God says it qualified you. You now understand compassion on a deeper level. You recognize suffering in others because you have felt it yourself. That awareness will make you a safer place for others, not a harsher one. Pain softened your heart without weakening your boundaries. It refined your empathy while sharpening your discernment. God says the pain also broke unhealthy dependence. You stopped expecting people to save you and learned how to seek strength from Him directly. That shift was crucial. If you had remained dependent on others for validation and security, you would have been vulnerable to disappointment and manipulation. Pain redirected your trust. It taught you where your true source of stability lies. What you endured did not stain you. It purified you. You emerged with clearer vision, stronger self-respect, and a deeper understanding of purpose. You no longer chase what drains you. You no longer explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. That is healing in motion. God says, do not resent the pain. Honor what it produced. It revealed truth, built endurance, and freed you from attachments that limited you. The pain is not your story, but it is part of your testimony. It prepared you to carry what is coming without losing yourself. God says we were wrong about the timing, because you measured it through urgency and comparison instead of wisdom and readiness. You looked at your age, your circumstances, and the progress of others and assumed something had gone wrong. But God says His timing is not delayed by human calendars. It is governed by purpose. What you were waiting for was not late. It was protected. If it had arrived when you first asked, it would have overwhelmed you, distracted you, or pulled you off course. You thought waiting meant stagnation. God says waiting was refinement. In the waiting, your reactions changed. You became slower to anger, less reactive to provocation, and more thoughtful in decision-making. The urgency that once pushed you to force outcomes has been replaced by discernment. That shift did not happen overnight. It happened through repeated moments of surrender when you chose trust over control. Timing matured you. God says we were wrong to think the door stayed closed because you were unworthy. The door stayed closed because you were still becoming. There were layers of ego, fear, and impatience that needed to be addressed before the next season could open safely. God delayed the door not to deny you, but to prepare you to walk through it without losing your balance. Now you carry yourself differently. You listen before you react. You pray before you move. That is readiness. You once believed that if God was silent, nothing was happening. God says silence was strategy. In quiet seasons, distractions were removed so your hearing could sharpen. You learn to recognize His guidance without constant reassurance. That ability will sustain you when responsibility increases and voices multiply. Timing taught you how to stand firm without external confirmation. God says we were wrong to think it was too late to start again. Renewal does not expire. Purpose does not diminish with time. In fact, what comes now carries more weight because you understand the cost of misalignment. You no longer chase opportunities blindly. You evaluate them through peace, wisdom, and alignment with God's voice. That clarity could only come through waiting. The delay also protected your heart. Earlier success might have fed insecurity or tied your identity to performance. Now your identity is anchored. You know who you are beyond outcomes. That stability allows you to handle elevation without losing humility and correction, without losing confidence. Timing guarded your soul. God says what feels sudden now is only sudden to you. In the spiritual realm, this moment has been forming for a long time. Every no, every pause, and every closed door contributed to this alignment. Now the pieces fit together in ways they never could before. You are not scrambling. You are positioned. You are also no longer desperate. Desperation would have compromised your discernment. Timing removed desperation and replaced it with trust. You can now wait without anxiety and move without fear. That balance is rare. It is the result of deep preparation. God says move when He says move, not when pressure demands action. You are not behind. You are on assignment. This next season will require calm obedience, not frantic effort. The pace will feel different because it is guided, not forced. The time is right because you are right. You have grown into the responsibility. You have learned patience, restraint, and wisdom. Now when the opportunity arrives, it will meet a version of you that can sustain it. God says step forward with confidence. The timing is aligned, and nothing has been wasted.